What's happening, everybody? This is Hayden Adams with A Designer Who Codes. In this video, we're breaking down the essence of how Google search works. Every slide in this presentation is going to focus on how Google views your website. Now, one big disclaimer as we start on this whole presentation is that if it doesn't come from Google, I don't trust the source. I see so many websites out there guessing at how Google works. And Google basically tells us, they give us a complete roadmap onto how to build websites that rank high on their Google search because Google wants you to have a good website. This is more, if we think about a higher level exercise, you have a good website, that means it's going to be a good experience for the user, which then means someone's going to come back to Google. So Google has a vested interest in making sure you know how best to build your website. In 2013, everything changed with Google search, and that's when they created, or should we say released, Project Hummingbird from Google. Google now looks less at individual keywords and overall, as it says, on the natural language queries, considering context and meaning over individual words. They're looking for the essence of your website. So while word and words might be important, they're looking for the phrases, the paragraphs, the essence, the overall vision of your website. So I think less about keywords and more about what am I writing as a whole when it comes to Google at this point in time. A lot of information was still out there from the 2000s, and I think it was great. But to me, changed into Google Hummingbird version, everything changed. And that's also talking about how PageRank officially was retired. And this was a big thing. This is why I'm not a huge proponent of backlinks. And if we look at this old PageRank diagram, you notice that letter B and letter C are bigger than letters A and those 1.6 purple dots. That was the idea in this older Google era, whereby as you had more viable linkage from more prominent websites, you got a boost. And while that probably is still kind of around, it's basically dead. And we can see it because the patent, if we read the website at patents.google.com/patent/US 6285999, the status is expired. So this whole entire algorithm is no longer applicable officially. Now it might be still embedded somewhere within the algorithm, but pretty much PageRank as we know it has been retired. And also people always ask me about PageRank. PageRank comes from the co-founder Larry Page. So PageRank is actually one word. It's actually a term they use to describe how they ranked pages. And again, I don't really hold much status on this entire idea, only because Google has said that this patent expired. So if it's expiring, we don't really think about it as a true metric, and Google doesn't include this tactic on their website from SEO basics. So I don't really focus this as my search engine optimization going forward in 2025 and beyond. It might change in the future, but as of right now, I kind of assume that this whole endeavor of this PageRank is dead. Okay, so now what? Well, I break it down. I think about websites in three categories: page speed, accessibility, and great content. So let's break those three categories down. First is page speed. Yeah, really, page speed. Google has an entire page dedicated to page speed. So you can find it at developers.google.com/speed, where their whole entire title is analyze and optimize. Actually, the big title at the top is make the web faster. Well, I'm reading the wrong notes. What that means, and this again gets back to SEO purposes, Google wants a fast website. Why? Because we're all impatient these days. But two, it's usability. If you don't have to wait merely more than a second or two, that means that you've got the content much quicker, delivering a better user experience. Think about dinner time. If you're at a restaurant and the food takes an hour and a half, it might be the best food you've ever had. But an hour and a half, I don't know if I'm willing to wait that long. I might walk out of the restaurant. But if the food shows up in 20 minutes and it's amazing, I'm going to be really, really happy. So it's the same thing for the web. Google wants you to build a fast website because it delivers a better user experience for a Google search result. If you search for something, click on a button, and it rapidly delivers the content, you naturally go, wow, that was quick, without even thinking about it. And so Google makes a whole entire point to make the web faster. This means that their search results in turn give better user experiences to the user. That's a lot of technical jargon, but think about the kitchen analogy. How long you wait for food to come out of the kitchen? 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes? Well, the thing is, imagine if you could have a tracking tool. Well, we do, and Google actually makes that. Google actually uses the PageSpeed insights to track performance. So there's two areas that I think about are the most important. And I always use the phrase, Google does nothing by accident. If we look at these metrics, if we go in order from left to right, performance is first, accessibility is second, best practices is third, and SEO is fourth. Because Google makes a whole entire pitch to make the web faster, it then says, cool, well, let's make a tool to measure how fast your website is. We have, again, if we think about the kitchen speed, we've got red 0 to 49, orange 50 to 89, and green 90 to 100. How fast is your website? Think about being in the green. That's the idea of making a really fast website. And Google basically tells you how to speed up your website. So this tool at pagespeed.web.dev, and while this is not an official google.com domain, the .dev TLD or top level domain is owned by Google. So they actually use the .dev for a lot of their development tools. And at the bottom of the website, it does say Google for Developers, thereby trusting this page is made for and used by Google. Now, again, I talk about 1 versus 2. I still feel performance is the biggest metric on Google. They really want you to have a fast-based website. But number 2 is accessibility. And they talk about accessibility big on Google. They want your site to be accessible to everybody. So this should be a really high level importance on search engine optimization when it comes to Google search. Google will tell you out of 1 versus 100 how accessible your site is. Now, I ran my website on August 1st, about a week ago, and I can see that in Accessibility 101, it passed all the audits. There's 19 on this page, and it says, hey, you passed them all, you look great, things are good. Now, Google didn't set the standards. That's through a different organization called the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. You can find it w3.org, WAI, Standards Guidelines /WCAG. What they tell you is that how accessible is your website? Does it have the important information behind the scenes? Can it scale up? Can it scale down? Is there amount of contrast that's important? All of these metrics are important to Google so much they built a tool to assess it. And that's what I think about is that Google has this tool whereby it'll tell you, did you do everything right or can you improve it? So if we come back to my performance accessibility, I always strive for 100 on accessibility. There might be a 98 if I don't have a contrast at perfect contrast ratio, but I really strive to make sure the buttons are always labeled properly. The buttons have the right size. We have the H1, H2 tags in place. We have all the HTML structures that are needed to perform at a high level /100 out of 100 for accessibility. And you can find more at support.google.com on the sites on the answer, and also the w3.org site has a plethora of information to go through with accessibility. So we have 2 metrics, performance and accessibility, which you really should strive for. And the third one is a little more esoteric, but Google still breaks it down in the best way that they can. And that's EEAT, which is probably the world's worst acronym. I guess it's EAT. But basically it stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, if I said it right, and trustworthiness. What does this mean? This goes back, if we come back to my slide, I'm going to go all the way back, so hang on a second. Here we go. I'm focused on page speed, accessibility, but I use the phrase great content. Make great content. Don't copy content. Don't repurpose content. Don't write content for Google. And this is what Google says over and over and over again. Write content for people to read. And if we think about an example, I'm based here in Savannah, Georgia. If I had a Savannah-based company, I have a web-based company, which technically is in Savannah, but it's all over the country, the world. But if I had like a brick and mortar location and I wanted to say that we're based in Savannah, I would just say we're based in Savannah. I wouldn't write a paragraph that's like, we're based in Savannah. Savannah's located in Georgia in the United States. Savannah, Georgia is on the coast right next to South Carolina. Yes, we already know where Savannah is, so I don't need to write over and over again hoping to stuff that keyword in there over and over again. So again, I'm not trying to overrank the site. I'm trying to write for these four things: experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Trustworthy. Does it feel like I'm coming off as authentic, or am I coming off as inauthentic? Is the code or text that I wrote really just written for like trying to get the best home mortgage and I can get you the lowest rate? Or am I writing for my clients to come back to me because they trust me and I know I'm going to work in a good way? So this is what Google looks for. Now, again, they break it on their website, which I have developers.google.com/this long link as well. But it talks about how to create helpful content. And this is what they look for. Again, in that Hummingbird now description, they're looking for the overall essence of your website. They're thinking about how does your page view and how can I get the right audience to that page? And that's part of the EEAT, or as I say, great content piece of Google. Again, they don't tell you exactly, because if they had the exact map, it's like a FICO score in the US. FICO is the Fair Isaac Credit Association or organization that determines how much money you can borrow. They tell you how it works, but they don't tell you how it works. And the same with Google. They're not going to tell you that if you do X, you will get ranked Y. But this is like a little drop in the bucket. If you have everything working towards your benefit, you will rank higher. And Google will reward you for it. It might take a day, it might take a month, it might take 6 months. I can't control how fast Google works, nor can you. I guess maybe Larry Page and Sergey Brin could, maybe Eric Schmidt's got something, the CEO of Google. But otherwise, those guys got the levers, but I don't, as just a little web developer sitting here in Savannah, Georgia. So again, when it comes to EEAT, think about the overall content of your site, and does it help my site? And am I writing for people, or am I writing for Google? If you're writing for Google, Google's smarter than me, and it's not going to work. So write for someone to help them on your website. That is a huge part of SEO in the modern day framework. Also, a pro tip: if you're not using the Google Search Console, use the Google Search Console. It's free, because why not? Google wants to tell you how your site does, because you then can improve it to make your site better for Google. Google will give you all the details of what page ranks, what the search terms people are looking for, and how many times people clicked from Google to your website. So if you're really curious about how your site works, use the Google Search Console. It's a fantastic tool. It's great. And I also will put a link of how to set up the Google Search Console on your website in the link in the description below. Thank you. Hope this really helped you understand more of Google Search and how Google searches your content in 2025 and beyond.